What's up everybody, this is Danny, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Oppo N1. And you guys know how much I love the Oppo Find 5, so I couldn't wait to get my hands on this Oppo N1. But this device is a little bit different than the Find 5, for this is targeted for people who love large devices. Oppo is known for their build quality on their devices, so let's take a look at the hardware first. The N1 features a simple design. On the left side, you will find the power button and the volume rocker switches, and on the opposite side, you will find just a micro SIM card slot. And on the bottom, you will find the single speaker, the micro USB port, the 3.5mm headphone jack, and your primary microphone. Now, if you look around the edges, you can see that nice silver trim with chamfered edges, and that is a very nice touch to the N1. The back is covered with a nice matte finish polycarbonate shell, and it is only available in white at this time. But if you look on the back, you will see a square there that is called O-Touch, and that is a touch sensitive panel that allows you to control certain parts of the OS with that panel. And there is the most notable thing about the N1, which is the 13 megapixel rotatable camera with dual LED flash. This flexibility means that you no longer have to shoot with a 1.2 or 2 megapixel front-facing camera anymore. You can get the full 13 megapixel resolution. The build quality on the N1 is exactly like I expected. It feels very significant in the hand, very sturdy, and it's not as heavy as I thought it would be. But the one thing that I noticed is how tall this device is compared to the other devices in its class. You're definitely going to have to shuffle your hands some to get to the power button and the volume rockers, and it's a little bit cumbersome to handle. It is for sure a two-handed device. Now, even though this passes the pocket test, and it probably will for most people, this is a little bit different than some of the other devices that I've used, such as the Galaxy Note 3. I had no problems fitting that in my pocket. But the N1 is very tall, so you may notice it more in your pocket, especially with activity or sitting down. So I just want to let you know that the N1 is very tall and it could feel more significant in your pocket. For quick comparison purposes, here is the bright red Nexus 5, and that has a 5-inch display, where the N1 has the 5.9-inch display. And you can see how much taller the N1 is versus the Nexus. So I just wanted to show you side by side so you can see exactly how tall this device actually is. The 5.9-inch display on the N1 is a full 1080p resolution, and is pretty sharp at 373 ppi, and it is an IPS panel, so you know you're going to get some decent viewing angles, you're going to get some good color replication, and I found the touch sensitivity to be great on this panel. And it didn't wow me like it did on the Find 5 when I first got it, but I don't think you'll be disappointed in this screen whatsoever. The biggest thing that you gain out of having such a large display on the N1 is the multimedia experience that you get out of it. And you know I love to catch up on my favorite YouTube videos, and I have to do that. And I also loved watching TV shows on this. But the one thing that I noticed is that the speaker could be a little bit more rich in sound. It's a little bit tinny, could be a little louder as well, but it definitely gets by. Gaming on the N1 is a great experience despite its Snapdragon 600 CPU and Adreno 320 graphics. Now, this is a very capable SoC, don't get me wrong, but I can see a lot of people getting upset that it did not get the newer Snapdragon 800 CPU with the Adreno 330 GPU. Rightfully so though, because this device is $600 unlocked, and it comes in a 16 or 32GB variant with no SD card expansion. So I can see why people would be a little bit hesitant to buy this, because the power to price ratio is not that great. But despite its specs, this thing runs buttery smooth. And one of the reasons why is that this edition runs Cyanogen mod, and this is the first phone ever to get Cyanogen mod right out of the box. So when you open this and turn it on for the first time, you will be running Cyanogen mod instead of the Color OS, which is Oppo's Android skin on top of Android 4.2. If you're not familiar with Cyanogen mod, it is a popular custom ROM that is based off of stock Android, but with more functionality and more customizability. I am a huge fan of stock Android, so this was a very good experience for me. And as you can see, the lock screen is different and you have more functionality there. And I love how you can change your grid size here. As you can see, I have 6 icons stretching across the screen, and I thought that was way more functional for such a large screen. And it has more tablet-like functions where you swipe on each corner and it gives you different functionality. And also what I like is having the capacitive buttons, you're able to have the full 5.9-inch display experience on this. It's the small user details that I love about Cyanogen Mod. For even in this multitasking menu, you have to kill every app individually in stock Android, but look right there on the top right corner, it kills all the apps. Just little minor things like that that make the experience so much better. And it even has a DSP manager where you can get to your different equalizer functions for your music. I mean, there's just so much more customizability here than on stock Android. I do have to disclose, I never used the N1 with the Color OS, but I am familiar with Color OS, and I know it has a lot of customizability as well. But this is a little bit different. I love the way it's laid out. I love how you can change themes very quickly, and I like how you have different customizations to the interface. And I like also how you can change some of the buttons here, especially like your capacitive buttons. You can set different functions to them, which I found very, very helpful. You can even go as far as messing with the processor performance. Now, if you have an original N1, you can flash the Cyanogen Mod ROM to it, and it is based off of Android 4.3 Jelly Bean at this moment, but I'm sure that will change very, very soon. The gestures remain from the original N1, is if you double tap, it wakes the screen. I use that all the time. And if you draw a circle on the screen, it will fast open the camera. And then if you draw a V on the screen, it opens the flashlight app. So very functional, and I use them pretty much all the time. The O-Touch capabilities also remain in this Cyanogen Mod Edition, and that's that square of touch sensitivity on the back of the phone, which allows you to control certain parts of the OS with your finger so you don't have to touch the screen. Now, while this is very cool, I did not find myself using this very much, and sometimes I would hit it on accident while I was using the phone just normally, so I ended up turning it off most of the time. But it is pretty cool to show, and if you really don't want to touch your screen, you can scroll vertically like in Twitter, so I can see it being useful for some people, but I didn't find myself using it very much. The hardware has to be good, right? But I feel that the software experience is just as important, and I found that the Cyanogen Mod experience on the N1 was phenomenal. I mean, this was one of the best software experiences that I've had on a phone in a long time besides the Nexus device, and it has that Google stock Android feel with more. And it was great just typing on the Google keyboard. Everything was just simplistic and everything just worked well, and I loved the experience on this. To be honest, I was really expecting it to random reboot and hang up, and I was expecting a lot of software quirks with this, but Cyanogen was very stable on the N1, and I just cannot tell you enough how great of an experience this was. Adding to that solid experience was the huge 3610 milliamp battery that's in this. That's huge. And for some people, it's gonna last 2 days on moderate use. It got me through a full day on heavy use, and a lot of times it got me through a day and a half. So if you want a phone with great battery, then the N1 is gonna be the one for you. So this is a great battery, so don't worry about that whatsoever. But one of the reasons why the battery is so good is because this phone lacks LTE. Now this does have pentaband HSPA Plus for T-Mobile and AT&T. If you rely on 4G LTE data, then this is definitely not going to be the phone for you. But on T-Mobile's HSPA Plus, I was getting some decent speeds here, almost 12 megabytes per second, 8, 7, 7. For some people, that's going to be just fine. But if you're used to that 4G LTE speed, then you're probably not going to be able to put up with it. But on the phone call quality side, I thought the N1 was adequate. The speaker piece was nice and loud. It was clear. Now, it wasn't the clearest earpiece I've ever heard, but it definitely does it. And the other people said I sounded decent on the other line. So the N1 is a decent phone. For some, it might look a little ridiculous on the face because it is a very tall phone. I have a pretty big face and it covers almost all of my face, so be aware of that when you buy this phone. Now let's move on to the camera. That's probably the biggest thing that everybody wants to know. Since this is such a camera-centric phone, how well does it perform? Well, let's first take a look at the software. Now this is pretty much stock Android camera software, but there is just a little bit of difference here. If you go to the settings, this is very familiar for people that have used a Nexus device or a Google Play Edition device. But if you go over here to enhance, you can see some different things here. HDR, beautify, slow shutter mode, which is kind of cool, and a smart scene mode. It does feature a panorama mode, and the shutter speed is quick, and capturing pictures wasn't a problem at all, and it does take 1080p video. Now, the one thing I would have liked to see on this was a physical camera button. I think that would have made the experience much better since this is a camera-centric device, and I hope they include that in their next iterations of their smartphone. So let's jump right into image quality. This 13 megapixel shooter has the ability to take some fantastic photos. It has an f2.0 aperture, it's got great depth of field, and it's got great detail as well. And if you look, the color replication looks great, and the focus is primarily fast, and I had no problems under great lighting conditions. So I think as an everyday camera, this may be a great one. But where I had problems was low light. And in this picture here, it takes a decent picture, and then when you take another one, it's very noisy. And then here, the focus doesn't work too well. So there is a couple problems with the low light condition here, and you can see that the color replication is off as well. And HDR is kind of funky as well. You look at this regular photo, and here's the HDR. Really blown out, and it looks funny. And here's HDR at night at a parking lot here at sunset. But the slow shutter here works really well. This is under slow shutter mode, and so is this here at a restaurant. But the bad thing about this slow shutter is that you have to keep it very still, or you're gonna get a blurry picture like this one. It's a good overall camera, but I wouldn't say it's better than something like the Galaxy S4 or the iPhone 5S, for I think some of those flagships may actually outperform the N1, which is weird because they did tout this camera to be one of the best out there. So it's not a bad camera whatsoever. Now, the 1080p video is very sharp and the color replication is good, so I don't think you'll be disappointed at all in the 1080p video. Now, I wish they would have added some optical image stabilization to this, because that would have really made this camera a little bit different from the other ones that are out there. So you do get a little bit of a shaky video. Now, the one advantage of this is being able to flip that rotatable camera around, so you're able to do some high quality front-facing camera work. Now, I'm not going to get into too much detail about this because I did a whole separate video called "Is the Oppo N1 the best vlogger camera out there?" And I'll leave that link in the description section below so you can check it out, where I put it up against the iPhone 5S. What's funny is, even though that this 13 megapixel camera has higher quality, I found that the white balance and color replication is actually a little bit off on the N1 when you're using it to vlog. So you can look at the sample right here, and you can also watch that video, but it is not what you would expect out of this camera. So it might be a little disappointing for some people, but that's the camera in a nutshell. So what do I think about the N1 overall? I think it's a great device. I think that it is a fantastic built device. It's got a huge battery that lasts a day or even two. It's got a great screen, and I just love the software experience on this. As I said earlier, I think that their partnership with Cyanogen is one of the most important steps that this company has taken. So I think if you like a large device with a great, simple, and fast UI, then this is definitely going to be the one for you. But the lack of LTE and the good but not stellar camera makes me want to say that you might want to wait for this Find 7, because this is going to alleviate all these problems or all these gripes that I have about this phone, and it's coming very soon. But I think if you like a large device and you want this Cyanogen mod build, then I don't think you would be disappointed in this phone. Just make sure that you remember the things that this phone is lacking, especially for the US market. Alright guys, well that's about it for this review for the Oppo N1, and make sure you check out my unboxing and overview of this device, for the packaging is incredible, so you need to make sure you check that out. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any more videos like this one, and feel free to give a thumbs up if you enjoyed this content, and I appreciate every view that I get and all the support, and I'll see you guys in the next video.